My name is Ava, and I'm 32 years old. Growing up as the invisible daughter in my family wasn't easy. My sister Natalie always shined brighter in my parents' eyes. Just last month at our family reunion, I announced my company had secured $10 million in funding, but everyone barely nodded. 10 minutes later, Natalie mentioned she got a call back for a local commercial and champagne bottles were popped. That day changed everything for me. I finally understood my worth wasn't determined by their validation. If you're watching this right now, drop a comment letting me know where you're from. Hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever felt overlooked by the people who should have been your biggest supporters. Let's dive into my story. I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood in Boston with my parents Michael and Susan and my younger sister Natalie, who is 3 years younger than me. Our home was comfortable. A colonial-style house with a well-kept lawn and a white picket fence that my father maintained meticulously every weekend. To outsiders, we were the picture-perfect American family. My parents were both successful professionals. My father, Michael, was a respected surgeon at Massachusetts General Hospital. He specialized in cardiothoracic surgery and often worked long hours, but somehow always managed to make time for Natalie's activities. My mother, Susan, was a corporate attorney at a prestigious law firm in downtown Boston. She was sharp, articulate, and had a commanding presence that intimidated most people. Both of my parents were accomplished in their fields, and they expected their children to follow in their footsteps of excellence. The contrast between Natalie and me was apparent from an early age. I was the quiet, introspective child who preferred reading books and solving puzzles to socializing. My mind worked in logical patterns, and I found comfort in the predictability of mathematics and science. Natalie, on the other hand, was a social butterfly. She lit up rooms with her bubbly laughter and charismatic personality. While I struggled with small talk, Natalie could charm anyone from the grocery store cashier to my father's colleagues at hospital fundraisers. The favoritism was subtle at first, but became increasingly obvious as we grew older. When I was 10, I won first place in the regional science fair with a project on solar energy. My parents sent my grandmother to the award ceremony because they couldn't miss Natalie's dance recital, where she had a minor role in the ensemble. The science fair was a significant achievement. Only one student from each school was selected to participate, but my certificate ended up in a drawer, while Natalie's dance photos were framed and displayed prominently in our living room. Our family vacations were another clear indicator of the imbalance. Every summer, my parents would ask Natalie where she wanted to go. When she went through her Disney phase, we went to Disney World 3 years in a row. When she developed an interest in marine biology at age 11, we spent 2 weeks in the Florida Keys so she could swim with dolphins. My suggestion to visit the Kennedy Space Center during our Florida trip was dismissed as something we could do another time. That other time never came. The disparity in our treatment was perhaps most evident during Christmas. One year, when I was 13, I received practical gifts, a new backpack for school, some educational software, and clothes. Natalie, who was 10 at the time, unwrapped a new laptop, a professional quality camera, and tickets to a Taylor Swift concert. When I quietly pointed out the difference to my mother, she said, "Natalie needs more encouragement to find her talents. You're already good at school." Our bedrooms told the same story. My room was plain and functional. A twin bed with a simple blue comforter, a desk for studying, and bookshelves filled with academic books and the few novels I managed to buy with my allowance. Natalie's room was a showcase, a queen-sized bed with a canopy, a state-of-the-art sound system, a vanity table with a lighted mirror and walls painted in her favorite color that changed every few years, requiring complete room makeovers. Despite the clear favoritism, I never stopped trying to earn my parents' approval. I threw myself into academics, consistently bringing home straight A's, joining the math club, the science Olympiad team, and the debate club. I thought if I collected enough achievements, they would finally notice me. They would finally be proud. But my report cards were met with cursory glances and comments like, "That's what we expect from you, Ava." The one person who truly saw me was my grandmother Martha, my father's mother. Unlike my parents, Grandma Martha took a genuine interest in my interests and accomplishments. She was a retired mathematics professor who recognized and nurtured my analytical mind. During weekend visits to her cozy apartment filled with books and the smell of freshly baked cookies, she would challenge me with advanced math problems and discuss scientific theories that were well beyond my grade level. "You have a remarkable mind, Ava," she would tell me, her eyes sparkling behind her wire-rimmed glasses. "One day, you'll change the world with that brain of yours." Grandma Martha was the one who secretly bought me my first computer when I was 12. It wasn't new or fancy, but it was mine. She showed me the basics of programming, sparking what would become a lifelong passion for technology. While my parents were attending Natalie's weekend rehearsals, Grandma Martha was teaching me how to code, creating a special bond that sustained me through those difficult early years. "Your parents love you," she would say when she caught me looking sad after another disappointment. "They just don't understand you the way I do. Some flowers bloom differently, and that doesn't make them any less beautiful." Those words became my mantra, helping me survive in a household where I often felt like a ghost. By the time I entered high school, I had accepted my place in the family hierarchy. I was the reliable one, the one who didn't need attention or validation. Natalie was the star, the one whose achievements, no matter how minor, were celebrated with enthusiasm. I channeled my feelings of invisibility into my schoolwork, excelling in advanced placement classes and developing a particular affinity for computer science. Natalie's social status blossomed in high school. By her sophomore year, she was already one of the most popular girls in school. She was elected homecoming queen, became captain of the cheerleading squad, and dated the quarterback of the football team. It was like living with a celebrity. My parents attended every football game, every cheerleading competition, and every school event where Natalie performed or was recognized. Our refrigerator was covered with photos of Natalie in her cheerleading uniform, Natalie at homecoming, Natalie at prom. During my junior year, I qualified for the state science competition with a complex algorithm I had developed that could predict traffic patterns with remarkable accuracy. The competition was held on a Saturday in a city 2 hours away. When I reminded my parents about it the week before, my mother frowned and checked her calendar. "Oh, Ava, I'm sorry, but that's the same day as Natalie's volleyball tournament. It's an important game. There will be college scouts there." "But this is the state science competition," I said, trying to keep the hurt from my voice. "I'm one of only 10 students selected from the entire state." My father looked up from his medical journal. "Ava, you know academics come naturally to you. Natalie needs our support for her athletic endeavors. She's working so hard to get a sports scholarship." In the end, neither of my parents attended the science competition. I took the bus alone to the convention center and won first place. The judge, a professor from MIT, was impressed with my algorithm and gave me his card, encouraging me to apply to their computer science program. When I returned home with my trophy, my parents were still not back from Natalie's tournament. I placed the trophy on the kitchen counter, where they would see it. The next morning, my mother noticed it while making coffee. "Oh, you won. That's nice, honey. Did you know Natalie's team placed third in their division? The coach said she had the best serve percentage on the team." The trophy was eventually moved to a shelf in the study behind my father's medical school diplomas and my mother's law credentials. Throughout these years, Grandma Martha remained my rock. Now in her 70s, she couldn't travel to my competitions, but she would call me before each one to wish me luck, and afterward to hear every detail. She understood the complexity of my projects in a way my parents never attempted to. "Your algorithm could revolutionize urban planning," she said when I explained my traffic prediction project. "You're thinking about problems that most adults haven't even identified yet." During my sophomore year, I also found an ally in my computer science teacher, Mr. Reynolds. He was a former software engineer who had left the industry to teach, and he recognized my potential immediately. He gave me additional projects that challenged me and introduced me to programming languages not covered in the standard curriculum. He became a mentor, staying after school to help me develop my skills and encouraging me to pursue my interest in technology. "You have a natural talent for this, Ava," he told me. "Most students learn the syntax, but you understand the underlying logic in a way that can't be taught." My 16th birthday fell on a Tuesday during my junior year. I didn't expect much. Birthdays had never been a big deal for me, but I thought at least my parents would acknowledge it. That morning, I came downstairs to find the house empty. A note on the kitchen counter informed me that they had gone to an early rehearsal for Natalie's school play, in which she had landed the lead role. The play was scheduled to open that weekend, and the director had called an emergency rehearsal. I made my own breakfast, drove myself to school, and went through the day without a single birthday wish from my family. When I returned home, my parents and Natalie were still out. There was another note saying they had gone straight from rehearsal to dinner with the drama teacher and some of the other parents involved in the production. They had left money for me to order pizza. I sat alone in the kitchen eating a slice of pepperoni pizza when my phone rang. It was Grandma Martha singing "Happy Birthday" in her wavering voice. After she finished, I could no longer hold back my tears. "They forgot," I sobbed. "They're out celebrating Natalie's play." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "I'm coming over," Grandma Martha said firmly. "And I'm bringing cake." An hour later, we sat at the kitchen table with a small chocolate cake from my favorite bakery. Grandma Martha had brought a present too, a book on advanced programming techniques that I had been wanting. "Your parents love you, Ava," she said gently. "But they don't see you. Not really. Some people are so blinded by the sparkle that they miss the substance." The college application process during my senior year further highlighted the disparity in how my parents treated Natalie and me. Despite being a year younger, Natalie was already being groomed for college applications. My parents hired a private consultant to help her identify schools with strong performing arts programs. They took her on tours of NYU, UCLA, and other universities known for their theater departments. They helped her prepare for auditions, recording videos, and taking professional headshots. Meanwhile, I researched colleges on my own. I spent hours in the school library using their computers to look up programs in computer science and technology. I identified scholarships I might qualify for and meticulously prepared my applications. Mr. Reynolds reviewed my essays and wrote a glowing recommendation letter. Grandma Martha encouraged me to aim high. "Apply to MIT," she urged. "Your mind belongs there." When my MIT acceptance letter arrived, along with the news that I had been awarded a full academic scholarship, I was ecstatic. I rushed to show my parents, who were in the living room helping Natalie prepare a monologue for her NYU audition. "I got into MIT," I announced, holding up the letter. "Full scholarship." My mother looked up briefly. "That's wonderful, Ava. We knew you'd get in somewhere good." My father nodded. "Good job. MIT is a fine school." And then they returned their attention to Natalie's monologue. Later that spring, when Natalie was accepted to NYU's Tisch School of the Arts with a partial scholarship, my parents threw a party. They invited family friends, ordered catering, and toasted their daughter's success. There was no party for my MIT acceptance. A week before I left for college, Grandma Martha invited me to her apartment for lunch. After we ate, she handed me an envelope. "I've been saving for your education since you were born," she said. "You won't need it for tuition, but there will be other expenses. Books, a new laptop, conference fees. Use it to build your future, Ava." Inside the envelope was a check for $20,000, her life savings. I tried to refuse, but she was adamant. "I believe in you," she said, holding my hands in her gnarled ones. "I always have." The night before I left for MIT, I overheard my parents discussing finances in their bedroom. Their door was ajar, and I paused in the hallway when I heard my name. With Ava on scholarship, we can focus our resources on Natalie's education, my father was saying. Tish is expensive, and the scholarship only covers part of it. It's fortunate that Ava is so self-sufficient, my mother replied. She's always been able to take care of herself. Natalie needs more support. I stood frozen in the hallway, their words confirming what I had always suspected. In the economy of our family's love and resources, I was an afterthought. Natalie was the investment. I was the reliable dividend that required no nurturing. The next morning, I loaded my modest belongings into my used car and drove to Cambridge, leaving behind a childhood of invisibility and hoping to find recognition in the halls of one of the world's premier institutions of technology and innovation. MIT was like stepping into another dimension, one where my intelligence was valued, my analytical mind was an asset, and my passion for technology was shared by those around me. For the first time in my life, I was surrounded by people who spoke my language and appreciated my thoughts. It was both exhilarating and disorienting. My freshman dormitory was a hive of activity filled with brilliant minds from across the globe. My roommate Zoe was a mechanical engineering major from Seattle with a quick wit and an infectious laugh. Unlike the popular girls in high school who had dismissed me as a boring nerd, Zoe found my perspectives fascinating and my coding skills impressive. "You explain complex concepts so clearly," she said after I helped her debug a programming assignment. "Have you ever thought about teaching? It was such a novel experience, someone seeing value in my natural abilities rather than taking them for granted." Zoe came from a large, boisterous family where each child was celebrated for their unique talents. She couldn't comprehend my family dynamics. "Wait, so you got a full ride to MIT and your parents didn't even throw you a party?" she asked incredulously one night as we sat cross-legged on our dorm room floor sharing a pizza. "That's messed up, Ava." I shrugged, uncomfortable with her outrage on my behalf. "They've always been more focused on my sister. She's the special one." Zoe shook her head. "No offense, but your parents sound like they need their vision checked. You're literally at MIT on a full scholarship. That's exceptional by any standard." As I made friends with other students in my program, I discovered that many of them came from families that had nurtured their interests in technology from an early age. They had parents who bought them robotics kits, enrolled them in coding camps, and proudly displayed their science fair projects. It made the emotional neglect I had experienced all the more stark, in contrast. The first Thanksgiving break was difficult. I returned home to find that my bedroom had been partially converted into a storage space for Natalie's growing collection of theater memorabilia and costumes. Apparently, she needed more closet space, and since I was away at college. The dinner conversation revolved almost entirely around Natalie's experiences at NYU. When my mother finally asked about MIT, it was with polite disinterest. "So, how are your classes?" "Ava, not too difficult, I hope. I had just completed an algorithm that my professor said was graduate-level work, but I knew they wouldn't understand or care about the details." "They're fine," I replied. "Challenging, but interesting." Natalie immediately steered the conversation back to herself. "My acting coach says I have a unique emotional range. He thinks I could be doing professional work by next year." And just like that, my college experience was dismissed, and we were back to the Natalie show. Christmas break was even worse. Natalie came home announcing she was dropping out of NYU to find herself and pursue acting opportunities outside of structured education. Rather than expressing concern about this decision, my parents were supportive. "College isn't for everyone," my father said, "and the arts require a different path sometimes." A week later, my mother approached me in the kitchen. "Ava, your father and I were wondering if you might be able to help with Natalie's apartment in New York. She's decided to stay there and pursue auditions, but without the student housing, the rent is quite high." I was stunned. "You want me to help pay her rent? I'm a full-time student." You have that scholarship money, my mother pointed out. And the money from your grandmother. Natalie needs to focus on her career right now, not on financial worries. I refused, which created a palpable tension for the remainder of the break. I returned to MIT with a sense of relief, vowing to limit my time at home in the future. In my sophomore year, I secured a prestigious internship at a major tech company in California for the summer. The position was highly competitive with thousands of applicants from top universities across the country. When I called home to share the news, my father answered. "That's nice, Ava," he said after I explained the significance of the internship. "Oh, before I forget, Natalie got a call back for a small role in an off-Broadway production. We're flying out next weekend to see the final audition. Your mother is beside herself with excitement." By my junior year, I had stopped expecting my family to take an interest in my achievements. I found validation instead from my professors, my peers, and my growing network in the tech industry. I maintained contact with Grandma Martha through weekly phone calls, sharing my successes and challenges with her. Her health was declining, but her mind remained sharp, and she continued to be my most enthusiastic supporter. "I always knew you were destined for greatness," she would say. "You just keep following your path, Ava. The world needs minds like yours." The summer before my senior year, I received devastating news. Grandma Martha had suffered a massive stroke and was in the hospital. I immediately flew home, rushing to her bedside. She was conscious, but weak, her once vibrant presence diminished. "My brilliant girl," she whispered when she saw me, her hand trembling as she reached for mine. "I'm so proud of you." She died 3 days later, with me holding her hand. My parents and Natalie arrived shortly after she passed, having been delayed by one of Natalie's auditions. At the funeral, I stood alone by the casket, feeling the profound loss of the one person who had truly seen and valued me. After the service, my father handed me an envelope. "Mom left this for you," he said. Her lawyer gave it to me after the will reading. Inside was a letter written in Grandma Martha's elegant handwriting. "My dearest Ava, if you're reading this, I have moved on to whatever adventure comes next. Don't grieve too long for me. I've had a full life, and one of my greatest joys was watching you grow into the exceptional woman you are. You have always seen the world differently, finding patterns and solutions where others see only chaos. That is your gift. Don't let anyone dim your light or make you doubt your worth. Remember that families come in many forms. Some are bound by blood, others by choice and understanding. Seek out those who appreciate your unique mind and spirit. Build your own circle of support. I believe in you, Ava. I always have. Your future is limitless if you have the courage to claim it. Oh, my love, Grandma Martha." That letter became my talisman, a reminder that I had been truly loved and understood by at least one person in my family. I graduated from MIT with highest honors, having already accepted a position at a prestigious tech firm in Silicon Valley. My parents attended the ceremony, but left immediately after to catch a flight to Los Angeles, where Natalie had a small role in a television pilot that was filming the next day. As I stood in my cap and gown, watching them hurry away, I made a decision. I would build my own life, one where my worth wasn't determined by comparison to someone else. I would create my own definition of success and family. 2 weeks later, I moved across the country to begin my new job, leaving behind the shadow of being the forgotten daughter. The next 5 years were transformative. I threw myself into my work at the tech firm, quickly establishing myself as an innovative thinker and problem solver. I worked long hours volunteering for challenging projects and consistently delivering results that exceeded expectations. My managers took notice, and I was promoted twice in 3 years, an unprecedented rate of advancement for someone my age. While my professional life flourished, I maintained minimal contact with my family. Obligatory calls on holidays and birthdays, the occasional email update. Natalie's acting career had stalled after a few minor roles, and she had moved back to Boston, where my parents had purchased a condo for her. According to my mother's updates, she was now pursuing photography and had opened a small studio with financial backing from my parents. My own apartment was a modest one-bedroom in a complex populated primarily by other young professionals. I hadn't bothered to decorate much beyond the basics. My focus was on work, not on creating a home. I had a few friends from the office, but my social life was limited. The patterns established in childhood were hard to break. I still found it difficult to believe that people would be interested in me or my company. Everything changed when I developed a new algorithm for data security. It had started as a side project, something I worked on during evenings and weekends, driven by a persistent problem I'd identified in existing security protocols. The breakthrough came at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday after months of trial and error. I stared at my computer screen, hardly able to believe what I was seeing. The algorithm worked. Not only worked, it was exponentially more efficient than current industry standards. The next morning, still buzzing with excitement, I scheduled a meeting with my department head to share my discovery. I prepared a detailed presentation complete with demonstrations of the algorithm's capabilities and potential applications. This could revolutionize data security across multiple industries: healthcare, finance, government. The possibilities were endless. But the meeting didn't go as expected. My department head, Richard, listened politely, but without enthusiasm. When I finished my presentation, he leaned back in his chair with a patronizing smile. "It's an interesting concept, Ava, but I'm not sure it's aligned with our current product roadmap. Maybe we can revisit this in a year or two." I was stunned. But this solves problems our clients are facing right now. It could give us a significant edge over competitors. Richard shrugged. "The R&D budget is already allocated for the next fiscal year. We can't divert resources to unproven technologies, no matter how promising they might seem." I left his office feeling deflated but not defeated. Over the next few weeks, I tried to advocate for my algorithm through different channels. Speaking to other managers, presenting at an internal innovation showcase, even approaching the CTO at the company holiday party. The response was always the same: interesting, but not a priority. It slowly dawned on me that the company wasn't going to develop my algorithm. They didn't see its potential, or perhaps they didn't believe that someone at my level could create something truly revolutionary. Either way, the result was the same. My innovation was being shelved. The realization was both frustrating and liberating. If the company wouldn't pursue this opportunity, maybe I should. I began researching what it would take to start my own company based on my algorithm. I spent evenings studying business models, funding options, and the legal aspects of tech startups. I reached out to contacts in the industry, testing the waters without revealing too much about my specific innovation. The feedback was encouraging. Several experienced professionals expressed interest in seeing more once I was ready to share details. A former colleague who had moved to a venture capital firm suggested I develop a business plan and prototype to demonstrate the algorithm's capabilities. After months of preparation, I felt ready to take the leap. I had saved enough to support myself for a year without income, and I had a clear vision for how to develop and market my technology. All I needed was the courage to make the final decision. In a moment of vulnerability, I decided to seek my family's support. Not financial. I had no intention of asking them for money, but emotional. I wanted them to believe in me, to tell me I was making the right choice. Despite years of disappointment, some childish part of me still craved their approval. I arranged to visit Boston for a weekend, timing it to coincide with a family dinner my mother was hosting for some extended relatives. It seemed like the perfect opportunity to share my plans with everyone at once, to make them understand the significance of what I was undertaking. The dinner was at my parents' home, a gathering of about 15 people, including aunts, uncles, and cousins. Natalie was there, of course, the center of attention, as always. She was showing everyone her photography portfolio, receiving effusive compliments on her artistic eye and unique perspective. When there was finally a lull in the conversation, I took a deep breath and spoke up. I have some news I'd like to share. All eyes turned to me, some with mild curiosity, others with the look of people preparing to be polite, but not particularly interested. I've developed a new algorithm for data security that could significantly improve protection against cyber threats. I began trying to explain my innovation in terms they would understand. I believe in it so strongly that I'm planning to leave my job and start my own company to develop and market it. I went on to outline my business plan, the potential market for my technology, and the preliminary interest I'd received from industry contacts. As I spoke, I could see the skepticism growing on my parents' faces. When I finished, there was a brief silence. Then my father cleared his throat. Ava, that sounds very risky. The tech industry is incredibly competitive and most startups fail within the first year. My mother nodded in agreement. You have a stable job with good benefits. Why would you throw that away on something so uncertain? An uncle I rarely saw chimed in. Do you have any actual business experience? Running a company is very different from being an employee. One by one, they voiced their doubts and concerns, none of which addressed the actual innovation I was proposing. They weren't questioning whether my algorithm worked or its potential impact. They were questioning my ability to succeed on my own. I've done extensive research, I said, trying to keep the frustration from my voice. I have a solid business plan, and I've already had interest from potential investors. My father shook his head. It still seems like an unnecessary risk. Your job at the tech firm is a sure thing. Before I could respond, Natalie clapped her hands excitedly. Speaking of news, I have something to share too. All attention immediately shifted to her. She beamed as she announced, I've been dating Jesse Morgan for the past month, and it's getting serious. Jesse Morgan was a local news anchor with a modest following. Hardly a celebrity by national standards, but apparently famous enough in our family circle to cause a sensation. The reaction was immediate and enthusiastic. My mother gasped in delight. My father stood up to shake an imaginary hand. Aunts and uncles exclaimed their congratulations. Someone opened a bottle of champagne that materialized from nowhere. Tell us everything, my mother urged, completely forgetting my announcement from moments before. How did you meet? Have you been to the TV station? As Natalie launched into the story of their meeting at a charity event, complete with dramatic pauses and animated gestures, I sat silently observing the stark difference in how our news had been received. My potentially groundbreaking business venture had been dismissed as a risky whim, while Natalie's new boyfriend warranted champagne and rapt attention. The contrast was so absurd, so perfectly emblematic of our family dynamic, that something finally snapped inside me. Years of accumulated hurt and resentment bubbled to the surface, and before I could stop myself, I was speaking. Isn't it interesting? I said, my voice cutting through the excited chatter. How my decision to start a company based on technology I've developed is considered risky and unnecessary, but we're celebrating Natalie's new boyfriend like she's won a Nobel Prize. The room fell silent. All eyes turned to me, expressions ranging from shock to embarrassment to indignation. Ava, my mother said in a warning tone, this isn't the time or place. When is the time or place? I asked, standing up. When have any of you ever taken an interest in my achievements or supported my goals? When have I ever been more than an afterthought in this family? My father frowned. That's not fair, Ava. We've always supported your education and career. No, I said firmly. You've always expected me to succeed on my own while pouring all your attention and resources into Natalie. Do you even know what I do at my job? Do you understand what this algorithm I've developed could mean for data security? Did you celebrate when I got into MIT on a full scholarship? When I graduated with highest honors? When I was promoted twice in 3 years at one of the top tech firms in the country? The silence that followed was answer enough. You've never believed in me, I continued, my voice steady despite the emotion churning inside me. You've never seen me. I was always just the reliable one, the one who didn't need support or encouragement because I would succeed anyway. Well, guess what? I did succeed. I succeeded despite you, not because of you. Natalie's face had turned red with anger. That's not true. You're just jealous because you've always been so boring and I actually have a life. Jealous. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. I'm not jealous of you, Natalie. I'm angry at them. I gestured to our parents. For creating this dynamic where one child gets everything and the other gets nothing. For never recognizing my worth or my potential. For making me believe that I didn't deserve the same love and support that you received so abundantly. My mother stood up, her face pale. Ava, you're overreacting. We've always loved you both equally. Love isn't measured by what you feel, I replied. It's measured by what you do, and what you've done consistently is show Natalie that she matters more. With that, I picked up my purse and headed for the door. Behind me, I could hear the eruption of voices. My father calling my name, my mother trying to salvage the dinner, Natalie crying dramatically about how I had ruined her special moment. I got into my rental car and drove away, tears streaming down my face, but a strange sense of liberation growing in my chest. For the first time, I had spoken my truth. I had named the inequality that had shaped my childhood and young adulthood, and in doing so, I had freed myself from the need for their approval or understanding. Sitting in the parking lot of my hotel, I pulled out my phone and reread Grandma Martha's letter. I believe in you, Ava. I always have. Your future is limitless if you have the courage to claim it. In that moment, I made my decision. I would quit my job. I would start my company. I would bring my algorithm to the world, and I would do it without looking back, without seeking validation from those who had never been able to see my worth. I wiped away my tears and started drafting my resignation letter. The path ahead would be challenging, but for the first time, I was fully committed to walking it on my own terms. The early days of my startup were exactly as difficult as everyone had warned they would be, just not in the ways they had imagined. I quit my job, cashed in my modest investments, and poured everything into founding Secure Pattern, a company built around my security algorithm. Initially, I worked from my apartment, converting my living room into an office filled with whiteboards and computer equipment. I lived on ramen noodles and coffee, working 18-hour days to develop a prototype that could demonstrate the algorithm's capabilities to potential investors. My savings dwindled rapidly, but my determination never wavered. The first 6 months were the hardest. I faced rejection after rejection from investors who couldn't understand the technical aspects of my innovation, or who didn't believe a young woman without business experience could successfully lead a tech startup. Each no stung, but I refused to give up. Grandma Martha's letter remained on my desk, a constant reminder that someone had believed in me unconditionally. My breakthrough came when I met Jackson Chen at a tech conference where I had scraped together enough money to rent a tiny booth. Jackson was a veteran software engineer turned business developer who had worked for several major tech companies before becoming an independent consultant. He stopped by my booth out of curiosity, and I launched into my standard pitch, expecting the usual polite interest followed by a quick exit. Instead, he asked detailed technical questions that demonstrated a deep understanding of data security challenges. After 20 minutes of intense discussion, his eyes were bright with excitement. "This is revolutionary," he said, examining the prototype demonstration on my laptop. You've approached the problem from an entirely different angle. The implications for financial services alone are enormous. For the first time since starting my company, I felt truly understood. Jackson got it. He saw the potential that my former employers and dozens of investors had missed. The next day, Jackson called me with a proposition. He wanted to join Secure Pattern as a co-founder, bringing his business expertise and industry connections to complement my technical innovation. He also offered to invest his own money and help secure additional funding through his network. "I believe in what you've created," he said simply, "and I believe in you as the person to bring it to market. Let's build this together." With Jackson on board, things began to move quickly. His reputation opened doors that had previously been closed to me. 3 months later, we secured our first significant investment from a venture capital firm that specialized in security technologies. The funding allowed us to rent a small office space, hire 2 additional developers, and begin refining the product for commercial applications. Our first major client was a regional bank that had recently experienced a data breach. They were willing to take a chance on our unproven technology because their conventional security measures had failed them. We worked day and night to implement our solution, customizing it to their specific needs. When the system successfully repelled a simulated cyber attack that would have bypassed their previous security measures, word began to spread through the financial industry. Despite this progress, we faced constant challenges. Competing security firms tried to discredit our technology. Potential clients worried about entrusting their data protection to a startup. Cash flow was a persistent concern, with every new contract requiring upfront development costs that strained our limited resources. Through it all, I built a new kind of family, a chosen family of colleagues, mentors, and friends who supported my vision and valued my contributions. Jackson became not just a business partner, but a true friend who believed in me without reservation. Our growing team was united by a shared mission and mutual respect. For the first time in my life, I felt like I belonged. My biological family remained distant during this period. After the confrontation at the family dinner, communication had dwindled to occasional text messages and obligatory holiday calls. They knew I had started my company, but showed little interest in its progress. I stopped sharing my achievements with them, tired of the lukewarm responses and quick changes of subject. About 2 years after founding Secure Pattern, we faced our most significant crisis. A major client delayed payment on a large contract, creating a cash flow problem that threatened to leave us unable to meet payroll. Our investors were considering pulling out, concerned about the company's financial stability. Everything I had built was in danger of collapsing. I worked around the clock, desperately trying to find a solution. Jackson and I reached out to every contact we had seeking bridge financing to get us through the crisis. Most doors closed in our faces. The stress was overwhelming, and for the first time, I began to doubt whether I should have listened to my family's warnings about the risks of entrepreneurship. The night before we would have to announce layoffs, I received a call from Elaine Wong, a prominent tech investor known for taking chances on innovative technologies. She had heard about our situation through an industry contact. "I've been following your company for some time," she said. "Your security algorithm is unlike anything else on the market. I'd like to meet with you tomorrow morning to discuss investment options." The meeting with Elaine changed everything. After a 3-hour technical deep dive where I explained every aspect of our technology, she made an offer, $20 million in exchange for a 15% stake in Secure Pattern. It was a valuation far beyond what we had dared to hope for. "I don't just invest in technologies," she told me as we signed the preliminary agreement. "I invest in founders who have the vision and tenacity to change their industry. You have both." With Elaine's investment, Secure Pattern not only survived, but thrived. We moved to larger offices, expanded our development team, and began to create additional security products based on the core algorithm. Over the next year, our client list grew to include major financial institutions, healthcare organizations, and government agencies. Industry recognition followed. Security tech blogs began writing about our innovative approach. We won a prestigious innovation award at a major tech conference. I was invited to speak at cybersecurity events and university programs. Our company valuation reached $50 million with projections for continued rapid growth. Through all of this success, my family remained largely absent. My mother occasionally forwarded articles she happened to see about Secure Pattern, but there was never any acknowledgement of what I had achieved or how wrong their doubts had been. It still hurt, but the pain had dulled, overshadowed by the fulfillment I found in my work and my chosen family. I had proven them wrong not because I wanted to, but because I had believed in myself enough to try. And in doing so, I had created something valuable not just for me, but for the clients who trusted our technology to protect their most sensitive data. One evening, as I was working late in my office, Jackson stopped by my door. "Have you seen this?" he asked, placing a magazine on my desk. It was the latest issue of Tech Innovators, one of the most respected publications in the industry. On the cover was my photo alongside the headline, "Ava Mitchell, the Security Visionary Changing How We Protect Data." Inside was a 6-page feature article about me and Secure Pattern, detailing our journey from a one-person startup to an industry leader. The article described my algorithm in glowing terms and predicted that it would become the new standard in data security within 5 years. As I stared at the magazine, my phone rang. It was my mother. After more than a year of minimal contact, she was suddenly calling on the very day this article was published. I answered with a sense of wary curiosity. "Ava?" she said, her voice unusually warm. "We just saw the magazine. You're on the cover. Why didn't you tell us your company was doing so well?" I stood in front of my parents' house, feeling like a visitor to my own past. The colonial-style home looked exactly as I remembered it. The meticulously maintained lawn, the white shutters, the brass knocker on the front door that I had polished countless times as one of my chores. Yet I felt no connection to it anymore, no sense of coming home. Jackson waited in the car, having insisted on accompanying me to this family gathering. "Moral support," he had said. "Plus, I'm curious to meet the people who couldn't see how extraordinary you are." After the call from my mother, there had been a flurry of communication from my family. Emails from my father expressing pride in my unexpected success. Text messages from Natalie claiming she had always believed in me. Calls from aunts and uncles who suddenly remembered my existence, all prompted by the magazine cover and the accompanying article that detailed Secure Pattern's rise to prominence. My mother had insisted I attend this family dinner, organized specifically to celebrate my success. "Everyone wants to see you," she had said. "We're all so proud." Part of me had wanted to refuse to protect myself from the inevitable disappointment. But another part, perhaps the child still seeking validation, had agreed to come. Not alone, though. Having Jackson with me felt like bringing a piece of my real life, my chosen family, into this artificial celebration. I rang the doorbell, feeling oddly formal at the house where I had once lived. My mother opened the door, her smile broad, but her eyes uncertain. "Ava, you're here," she exclaimed, leaning in for a hug that felt stiff and performative. "And this must be your business partner. We've heard so much about you." A polite fiction. They had heard nothing about Jackson from me. They must have read about him in the article. The living room was filled with relatives, the same people who had dismissed my business idea as risky and unnecessary 3 years ago. Now they approached me with eager smiles and congratulatory handshakes as if they had supported me all along. "We always knew you'd do something amazing," said an uncle who had questioned my business experience. "Such an impressive achievement," added an aunt who had changed the subject to Natalie's love life when I announced my startup plans. I nodded and smiled, keeping my responses polite but brief. Jackson stayed close by his presence, a reminder of the authentic support I had found outside this house. My father approached, looking older than I remembered. "Ava," he said, his voice carrying a note of uncertainty I had never heard before. "The magazine article was quite something. A $50 million company founded by my daughter." He said the last part loudly enough for everyone to hear, as if claiming credit by association. Before I could respond, I spotted Natalie across the room. She was watching me with an expression that mixed resentment and curiosity. Our eyes met, and she quickly looked away, busying herself with adjusting a flower arrangement that didn't need adjusting. Dinner was a surreal experience. I sat at the center of the table, the position of honor usually reserved for Natalie. The conversation revolved around secure pattern, with relatives asking technical questions they didn't understand, and my parents boasting about their daughter, the CEO, to anyone who would listen. We always encouraged Ava's interest in technology. My mother told Jackson rewriting history with breathtaking confidence. She was always so brilliant with computers. Jackson caught my eye across the table, his raised eyebrow communicating his skepticism. He had heard enough stories about my childhood to know the truth. "Actually," he replied smoothly, "Ava tells me her grandmother was the one who bought her first computer and encouraged her interest in programming. She sounds like she was an amazing woman." My mother's smile faltered slightly. "Yes, Martha was very fond of Ava, but as her parents, we always supported her education." The revisionist history continued throughout the meal. My father claimed he had always known I would be successful in technology. Relatives who had barely spoken to me growing up now reminisced about how they had recognized my potential early on. Natalie remained uncharacteristically quiet, picking at her food and occasionally glancing at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. After dessert, my father pulled me aside into his study, the room where my science fair trophy had been hidden behind his medical diplomas. He closed the door and turned to me with an attempt at a warm smile. "Ava, I want you to know how proud we are of what you've accomplished. Your mother and I always believed you would do well, but this level of success, it's extraordinary." I stood silently, waiting for him to continue. "I was thinking," he went on, "that perhaps you might consider creating a position at your company for Natalie. Her photography studio isn't doing as well as she had hoped, and with your connections in the tech industry." And there it was. The real reason for the sudden family reunion, the effusive praise, the rewritten history. It wasn't about celebrating my success. It was about finding a way for Natalie to benefit from it. Something inside me broke and healed simultaneously. The last lingering hope that they might genuinely be proud of me for my own sake dissolved, but in its place grew a clarity and peace I had never experienced before. "No," I said simply. My father blinked, taken aback by the directness of my refusal. "What do you mean, no? She's your sister Ava. Family helps family." "Does it?" I asked, my voice calm. "When did you, or Mom, or Natalie ever help me? When did you attend my science competitions? Celebrate my achievements, support my dreams? When did you ever put my needs before Natalie's?" His face flushed. "That's not fair. We gave you everything you needed. You gave me the basics, food, shelter, education, but you never gave me what I actually needed: recognition, encouragement, love that didn't feel conditional on achievement. Do you know who bought me my first computer, Grandma Martha? Do you know who attended my state science competition when you were at Natalie's volleyball game? No one. I took the bus alone. Do you know who celebrated when I got into MIT on a full scholarship? Not you. You were too busy planning Natalie's NYU tours." I wasn't angry anymore, just stating facts. "You've spent my entire life prioritizing Natalie. Her dreams, her needs, her failures. You helped her financially when she dropped out of college. You bought her a condo when she moved back to Boston. You funded her photography studio when she decided that was her new passion. And now that I've built something successful on my own, your first thought is how it can benefit her." My father's expression shifted from defensive to uncomfortable. "We never meant to make you feel less important. You were always so self-sufficient, so capable. Natalie needed more support." "That's the problem," I replied. "You saw what you wanted to see. I wasn't naturally self-sufficient. I became that way because I had no choice. I learned early on that if I wanted something, I had to make it happen myself. No one was going to champion me the way you championed Natalie." I moved toward the door, then paused. "I'm not going to create a position for Natalie at my company. Secure Pattern hires based on merit and fit, not family connections. And frankly, I've spent enough of my life in Natalie's shadow. My company is the one place where I've been valued for exactly who I am, and I won't compromise that." When we returned to the dining room, the conversation halted abruptly. It was clear from the expectant looks that everyone had been discussing Natalie's potential role at Secure Pattern. My mother's expression was hopeful Natalie's entitled. The rest of the family watched with interest, waiting for the announcement that would continue the pattern of Natalie benefiting from my hard work. Instead, I looked around the table and spoke clearly. "I think it's time for Jackson and me to leave. Thank you for dinner." Natalie stood up, her face flushed with anger. "Of course you're leaving. You always think you're better than us now, don't you? With your fancy company and your magazine cover. You don't care about family at all." It was the opening I needed to address the elephant in the room. "Family," I repeated. "Is that what we're calling this? This performance, where everyone pretends they always supported me, when in reality, none of you believed in me or my company until you saw external validation. This gathering, where the real agenda is to get a job for Natalie at the company I built from nothing." The room fell silent. "Let me be clear," I continued, looking around at each family member. "I didn't build Secure Pattern to prove you wrong. I built it because I believed in my idea when no one else did. Certainly no one in this room. I succeeded not because of this family, but despite it." My mother stood up, distress evident on her face. "Ava, that's not true. We've always loved you." "Maybe you have," I acknowledged. "But you've never seen me. Not really. You saw the quiet, capable daughter who didn't demand attention like Natalie did. You saw the straight-A student who didn't need academic support. You saw what was convenient for you to see, which allowed you to focus your time, attention, and resources on Natalie." I gestured to Jackson, who had risen to stand beside me. "This is the person who saw my potential when my own family didn't. He invested in my idea when you all dismissed it as a risk not worth taking. He's been there for every setback and every triumph, offering genuine support without expecting anything in return. That's what family should do." Jackson spoke up for the first time since dinner began. "I've known Ava for 3 years now, and I've never met anyone with her combination of technical brilliance and leadership ability. She built Secure Pattern through sheer determination and vision, often working through the night and sacrificing everything to make it succeed. The company's success isn't luck or a surprise. It's the direct result of her extraordinary talent and perseverance." His words hung in the air, a stark contrast to the hollow praise my family had been offering all evening. Natalie's face had turned from angry to wounded. "So, you're saying you don't care about us anymore? That your new fancy friends are more important than your real family?" "No," I said gently. "I'm saying that family should be about mutual support and recognition. It should be about seeing each person for who they truly are and valuing their unique gifts. That hasn't been my experience in this family, but it's what I've found elsewhere, and it's what I deserve." With that, Jackson and I left, walking out into the cool evening air, with a sense of closure I had never expected to find. In standing up for myself, not in anger, but in truth, I had finally released the last chains binding me to a past of invisibility and conditional love. As we drove away, Jackson glanced at me. "You okay?" I considered the question carefully. "Yes," I said finally. "I think I am. For the first time, I don't feel like I need their approval or understanding. I know my worth, and that's enough." He nodded, a smile spreading across his face. "That's what makes you such an incredible leader, Ava. You know your worth, and you help others recognize theirs too." We drove back to the hotel in comfortable silence, leaving behind the house where I had grown up feeling invisible, and heading toward the future I had built for myself. One where I was seen, valued, and enough exactly as I was. The months following the confrontation with my family were a period of profound personal growth. Professionally, Secure Pattern continued its upward trajectory. We expanded internationally, opening offices in London and Singapore. Our client list grew to include some of the largest financial institutions and government agencies in the world. Industry awards and recognition poured in, validating what I had known from the beginning. My algorithm was truly revolutionary. But the most significant changes were happening within me. Having finally spoken my truth to my family, I felt a sense of liberation that extended to all areas of my life. I became more confident in my leadership, more open to personal connections, more willing to claim the space I deserved. The ultimate validation of my vision came when tech giant, one of the largest technology companies in the world, approached us with an acquisition offer. They valued Secure Pattern at $300 million and wanted to integrate our security protocols into their global infrastructure while keeping me on as CEO of the division. The offer presented a complex decision. Accepting would provide financial security beyond anything I had ever imagined and would expand the reach of my technology exponentially. But it would also mean surrendering some control over the company I had built from nothing. I discussed the decision extensively with Jackson and our leadership team. "What matters most to you?" Jackson asked during one late-night strategy session. "Is it maintaining complete control? Or is it seeing your technology reach its full potential?" The question made me reflect on my true motivations. I hadn't created my algorithm for wealth or recognition, though those had come. I had created it to solve a problem, to make digital information more secure in an increasingly vulnerable world. The acquisition would help achieve that goal on a global scale. After weeks of negotiation, I accepted a modified offer. Secure Pattern would be acquired by tech giant, but I would remain as CEO with significant autonomy over my division. The deal made me and my early team members wealthy beyond our expectations, but more importantly, it ensured that our technology would protect data for billions of users worldwide. With my newfound financial freedom, I established the Mitchell Technology Scholarship Fund, specifically designed to support overlooked students with aptitude in computer science and mathematics. The scholarships focused on young people who, like me, might not have family support for their technical interests. Each recipient was also paired with a mentor from the technology industry, ensuring they had the guidance I had lacked. I also created a mentorship program specifically for young women in tech, working to address the gender imbalance that I had experienced firsthand. These initiatives gave me a sense of purpose beyond my corporate role, allowing me to create the support system I had always wished for when I was younger. My relationship with my family evolved in unexpected ways after our confrontation. Some relatives reached out individually, acknowledging their past failures to recognize my potential. An aunt, who had been particularly dismissive of my startup plans, invited me to coffee and offered a genuine apology. "I judged you through the lens of conventional thinking," she admitted. "I couldn't see the innovation you were offering because it was beyond my understanding. I'm sorry for not supporting you when you needed it." These individual reconciliations were meaningful, but the relationship with my parents remained complicated. After several months of minimal contact, my mother reached out with a tentative email. "Ava, I've been thinking a lot about what you said at the dinner. While it's painful to hear that we failed you so completely, I recognize there's truth in your words. Your father and I have been doing some soul-searching about the way we parented both you and Natalie. If you're willing, we would like to talk more about this and try to build a healthier relationship moving forward. It wasn't an explicit admission of all the ways they had prioritized Natalie, but it was a start. We began with occasional phone calls, then progressed to monthly dinners. Just the three of us without Natalie or extended family. These conversations were often uncomfortable as we navigated decades of unaddressed hurts. But they were also healing in their honesty. My father, always more reserved with his emotions, found it difficult to discuss the past directly. Instead, he showed his changing perspective through actions. Attending a cybersecurity conference where I was a keynote speaker reading articles about my technology to better understand my work, asking thoughtful questions about my company, rather than immediately shifting the conversation to Natalie. The most surprising development was with Natalie herself. About a year after our confrontation, she asked to meet for coffee. I agreed with some trepidation, uncertain what to expect. She arrived at the cafe looking different than I remembered. Less polished, more authentic somehow. She had cut her long hair into a practical bob and wore minimal makeup. As we sat with our drinks, she fidgeted nervously before speaking. "I've been in therapy," she began abruptly. "After everything that happened, and I've been thinking a lot about our relationship growing up, about the way Mom and Dad treated us differently." I waited, giving her space to continue. "I always knew they favored me," she admitted, looking down at her cup. "I knew it and I liked it. I used it. When things were hard, when I failed at something, I knew they would be there to catch me, to fix it." She looked up, meeting my eyes directly. "I never realized what that meant for you. Or maybe I did, but I didn't want to think about it because it was working out so well for me." Her candor surprised me. This wasn't the self-centered sister I remembered. "The thing is," she continued, "always being the favorite isn't actually good for you. I never developed resilience or self-reliance. I never had to face consequences. And now I'm 32 years old, and I don't know who I am outside of being Michael and Susan's special daughter. I don't have anything I've built myself, anything I can point to and say, 'I did that.'" For the first time, I felt a genuine connection with my sister. Not as the favored child and the forgotten one, but as two women shaped by the same dysfunctional family system in different ways. "I'm sorry," Natalie said finally. "I'm sorry I didn't see what was happening to you. I'm sorry I took advantage of it. And I'm really sorry about that dinner, about expecting you to give me a job just because we're sisters. It was entitled and wrong." Her apology felt sincere, free of the manipulation that had characterized so many of our interactions in the past. We didn't become best friends overnight, but we began to build a more honest relationship as adults, one based on mutual respect rather than competition or resentment. As my personal relationships healed and evolved, I also found love in an unexpected place. Daniel was a cybersecurity professor I met when I gave a guest lecture at MIT. He was brilliant, kind, and completely unintimidated by my success. Our relationship developed slowly, built on intellectual connection and shared values. When he proposed 2 years after we met, it felt like the natural next step in a partnership of equals. Our wedding was small and intimate, attended by the people who truly mattered in our lives. Jackson was my man of honor, standing beside me as I had stood beside him at his wedding the previous year. My parents were present, behaving appropriately, if somewhat awkwardly. Natalie came alone, genuinely happy for me, without trying to make the day about herself, a sign of her continued growth. Most meaningfully, I carried Grandma Martha's letter in a small pocket sewn into my dress, keeping her spirit with me on this important day. In many ways, her belief in me had been the seed from which everything good in my life had grown. Today, 5 years after the magazine cover that prompted my family's sudden interest in my success, I find myself in a place of peace I never thought possible. Secure Patterns technology has become the industry standard for data security, protecting millions of users worldwide. The Scholarship Fund has helped dozens of promising students pursue careers in technology. My marriage to Daniel is a partnership of mutual respect and support. My relationship with my family continues to evolve. There are still awkward moments and old patterns that occasionally resurface, but we address them honestly rather than pretending everything is fine. My parents have made genuine efforts to see me for who I am, not who they expected me to be. Natalie and I have developed a relationship based on our adult selves, not our childhood roles. The journey hasn't been easy, but it has been worth every difficult conversation, every moment of standing up for myself, every risk taken. I've learned that being underestimated can become a superpower if you use it as fuel rather than allowing it to diminish you. I've discovered that family can be both born and chosen, and that sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is to create boundaries with those who cannot see your worth. Most importantly, I've realized that success isn't about proving others wrong. It's about believing in yourself when no one else does, about creating the life you want, rather than the one others expect of you. It's about finding the courage to claim your place in the world, even when those who should support you the most are the ones who doubt you. If you're watching this and you feel unseen or undervalued by your family, know that your worth isn't determined by their ability to recognize it. Your potential isn't limited by their expectations. Sometimes, the people who should believe in you the most are the least capable of seeing who you truly are and what you're capable of achieving. Have you ever been underestimated by family or friends? How did you handle it, and what did you learn from the experience? Share your story in the comments below. And if this resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that they are enough exactly as they are. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, sometimes being underestimated is the greatest gift because it forces you to find the strength within yourself.